Under the dim lights of Pinnacle, an anonymous napkin unveils a startling secret. 8-year-old Luna Montgomery, the daughter of billionaire Asher Montgomery, has emerged. As the media scrambles and a custody trial looms, can a money-driven CEO save his family? Under the warm glow and fleeting shadows of Pinnacle Restaurant, Asher Montgomery tapped an impatient rhythm with his fingers on the rim of a crystal glass, his lips pressed tightly to maintain a calm worth tens of millions. Around him, investment bankers squinted, vying for his glance, scanning profit projections with pleading smiles. The hum of conversation faded in Asher's mind, leaving only the soft background music and the relentless clink of his glass. Everything in his life seemed pre-programmed. The evening, the meeting, the presentation to the board, not a single detail left to chance. Suddenly, the table's surface quivered faintly as a waiter approached, lifting a pristine white appetizer plate. Beneath the flickering candlelight, the plate's removal revealed a neatly folded napkin, unusually precise. Asher Montgomery's pulse quickened, though his face remained impassive. He subtly turned his head, maintaining a professional smile, then leaned forward, slipping the napkin from beneath the cooled remnants of food. The handwriting was scrawled but clear. "Grandma Marigold Mackenzie is fading fast. She says you're my father. We're at Pine Hills Shelter. Please come before it's too late." The words struck like lightning, shattering Asher Montgomery's calculated armor. The surrounding voices tossed around terms like projection figures and market strategy, but they were mere distant echoes. His gaze froze, his heart pounding. A fragment of the past flashed. Paloma McKenzie, the woman he'd chosen to leave over a decade ago to pour his soul into his empire. Promises of love had dissolved in the heavy smoke of money until this napkin held an entire world waiting. Without hesitation, Asher Montgomery placed the napkin gently on the table, yanked his sedia back, the sharp scrape breaking the silence across the table. "I have an urgent matter," he said, his voice steady but carrying an unprecedented resolve. His partner's eyes widened, but they had no time to react. A hurried apology escaped his lips, and he strode from the table, leaving the shimmering crystal glass and stunned gazes behind. In a flash, the sleek black Bentley glided through the streets, its engine purring like a stealthy serpent. Asher Montgomery hunched over the wheel, the city's lights casting cold reflections on his angular face. Time turned merciless. Red lights skipped, intersections blurred, the highway a high-speed chase. Each kilometer stretched into a minute of last chances. On the back seat, the tightly folded napkin, a message about a life he should have known long ago. As the car veered onto the cobblestone path leading to Pine Hills Shelter, the darkness thickened into a wall of barren red brick. Dim yellow light from shuttered windows painted a scene both desolate and haunting. Asher Montgomery gripped the steering wheel, his hands steely, but his chest ached with pangs that stole his breath. The cold mind that once calculated only profit margins now spun with a single question. Why do Marigold Mackenzie and this child need me in just a few hours? Parking, he stepped out like a sleepwalker, each footfall heavy on the leaf-strewn concrete. The door closed behind him, its echo reverberating in the secluded space. Asher Montgomery's breaths steadied as he looked up at the weathered sign, Pine Hills Shelter. The musty scent, mingled with faint traces of oil lamp smoke, clung to his expensive suit collar. He raised his eyes where the darkness stretched like welcoming fingers, and his final calculations dissolved into something called hope. Hope that he'd reach the child he'd never met in time. Inside the metal door, a faint light flickered, guiding Asher Montgomery to a small office. A gaunt woman with long, wary lashes, Willow Thompson, spoke softly. "Marigold Mackenzie asked me to find you." Asher's eyes sparked with surprise, carrying a flood of regret. The room seemed to close around him, leaving only expectant silence, and in that moment, Asher Montgomery knew that a child's scribbled note on a napkin would change his life forever. In the faint yellow glow of the empty hallway, Asher Montgomery followed Willow Thompson, his eyes still tinged with shock as he grappled with a message on the napkin. The musty smell of damp air and faint oil lamp smoke clung to his expensive suit collar, a stark reminder that he was adrift in a world far removed from the stately boardrooms, incessant phone chimes, and polished wooden floors of his usual domain. His footsteps echoed on the creaking wooden stairs, each one like a countdown to a past life he had long abandoned. As Willow Thompson's office door creaked open, the space seemed to shrink into a mysterious box. A simple chair, a worn wooden desk, and neatly stacked old documents on a shelf all exuded a humble simplicity that clashed with the opulence draped over Asher's frame. Willow bowed her head slightly, her hoarse voice breaking the silence. "Marigold Mackenzie asked me to find you as her condition worsened. The child is waiting here." A wave of disbelief surged through Asher Montgomery's heart, leaving him only able to nod, his stiff lips muttering a dry thank you. In that moment, the door swung wide, and the girl appeared like a living statue in the desolate scene. A cramped space with dim light, stained white walls. Yet Luna Montgomery's eyes sparkled like crystal beads. Her blonde hair fell loosely over her shoulders, a faded green sweater hugging her slender frame. She stepped forward, slow but eerily composed. For a few seconds, Asher Montgomery's breath caught in his throat. In those eyes he saw his younger self, and in her nose, lips, and the faint smile hidden behind a veil of melancholy, he saw Paloma Mackenzie. Willow Thompson slipped away quietly, closing the door with a soft thud, as if sealing off two worlds. Only Asher and the girl remained, 5 steps apart. The only thing alive in the moment was the crescent-shaped birthmark on Luna Montgomery's wrist, a silent emblem of their shared blood. He clasped his hands behind his back, striving for composure, but his heart raced, his mind swirling with questions. Why is she here? Why did Paloma never mention her? Why am I only now given the chance to be a father? Luna Montgomery's gaze followed him, fearless, only curious and expectant. She tilted her head, her deep blue eyes piercing straight through, forcing Asher to push aside his doubts to avoid drowning in them. He offered a shy smile, his voice low. "Can you tell me how you knew about me?" The simple question carried a lifetime of unspoken emotions, yet his mouth felt strangely dry. Luna Montgomery slowly raised her small arm, turning her hand to reveal the birthmark like a laurel crescent. "Grandma Marigold Mackenzie kept a box with your business cards and old newspaper clippings. She showed me your picture and said one day you'll meet him. When she got really weak, she said we had to find you while there was still time." Her voice broke in that moment, a whisper just loud enough to stir every corner of Asher Montgomery's memories of Paloma Mackenzie. The youthful love sacrificed for ambition and power. The room seemed to hold its breath, frozen in the collision of past and present. Asher felt the faint scent of Old Town's past, where he once held Paloma Mackenzie's hand under golden streetlights, the smell of notebook paper, and the soft ripple of a small lake's waves. Now, Luna Montgomery stood before him, not just a product of those bygone days, but a witness to every wrong choice he had made. Asher Montgomery reached out, lightly touching the girl's wrist, as if to erase the birthmark. A sudden but tender gesture. I don't know what to say," he stammered, struggling to name the emotions surfacing for the first time. "I'm so sorry." Those 2 words echoed like a hammer shattering the ice encasing his heart, tears threatening to spill, but he held them back, for there was still so much to do. He needed to hear more from her, to learn about Paloma Mackenzie, to understand why Marigold Mackenzie had endured and protected her granddaughter to the end. Just as he prepared to sit in the chair across from her, Willow Thompson's quick footsteps echoed behind the door. She entered with a thick folder, marked with terms like guardianship, paternity confirmation, and agreement form. "These are the documents Paloma Mackenzie left," she said softly, her eyes brimming with sorrow and understanding. The girl and her grandmother did everything except formally name you. Her voice was like a brick laid on the fragile foundation of hope. Hope that Asher Montgomery wouldn't miss his chance again. Asher Montgomery looked down at the papers, then up at Luna Montgomery. His heartbeat slowed as he saw the trust shimmering in her eyes. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling but resolute. I'll do everything to officially become your father." The girl nodded slightly, a fragile smile blooming like a fading flower, yet radiant enough to ignite a new spark of faith for both the estranged father and daughter. In the warm yellow glow of the small office, a halting but heartfelt beginning took shape, opening the next chapter of Asher Montgomery's life. The CEO who had found the most important thing in his tiny daughter, Luna Montgomery. In the sprawling penthouse spanning the top 2 floors of a glass skyscraper, Asher Montgomery paused at the elevator door, his gaze bewildered, as if stepping into an opulent void. The doors slid open slowly, revealing a gleaming marble floor that mirrored his silent footsteps, and floor-to-ceiling windows like giant picture frames showcasing the city's nocturnal dance of lights. Everything exuded a modernity so stark it felt rigid. Abstract sculptures perched on metal plinths, a long charcoal gray leather sofa stretched like a geometric symphony, and a glossy ebony dining table devoid of any trace of family. It was all a statement of aesthetics, yet utterly devoid of human warmth. Clutching Luna Montgomery's small suitcase, Asher Montgomery took a deep breath, suppressing the chill creeping from his neck down his spine. The girl's footsteps echoed faintly, her sparkling blue eyes darting across every corner, a mix of curiosity and caution in their depths. "This is where I live." Asher Montgomery's voice trembled slightly, as if whispering an incomplete sentiment into the hesitant space. Luna nodded lightly, clutching her suitcase, her tiny shoulders quivering faintly before the overwhelming grandeur that dwarfed her delicate frame. The space unfolded after a wide hallway where lights ran in strips along the walls like traces of time etched into the surface, leading to a living room with a ceiling soaring at least 3 meters high. Asher Montgomery paused before a massive glass window, gazing down at the endless sea of city lights, detached from the earth like a shimmering ocean. "It's like a living painting," Luna whispered, her voice tinged with awe as if she'd stumbled upon something miraculous. Her eyes remained glued to the glass, leaving behind her frail shoulders an invisible emptiness. On the long black table, a single vase of white orchids stood as the sole fragile sign of life amidst a sea of inanimate objects. Asher Montgomery sat beside Luna, gently tucking her blonde hair behind her ear, the light casting soft shadows that highlighted her delicate features. She turned, her gaze hesitant as if measuring him, then asked, "Do you have a lot of books here?" Asher Montgomery smiled faintly, replying, "Not many. I keep books in my office. Here, I like things tidy." The living room, vast as an art gallery, held minimal furniture, each piece meticulously chosen like a collector's exhibit. Luna Montgomery stepped forward, her small fingers grazing the smooth leather chair, tracing the subtle creases on its surface, something she'd never touched before. The air hung heavy with silence, infused with the scent of new leather and premium wood, making her brow furrow as if trying to sense the breath of the objects in their stillness. Asher Montgomery rose, leading her to the guest room, now hers. The room opened to pale gray walls, glossy oak floors, and a large window beside the bed, casting warm yellow light. A king-sized bed with crisp white sheets and neatly folded blankets looked ready for an ordinary guest, not an 8-year-old child. Luna set her suitcase on the floor, her wide eyes scanning every detail, then gently placed her small foot on the plush rug, the first time she felt a softness unlike the cold, bare floors of her past. "It's so big," she exclaimed, her voice laced with a hint of overwhelm. Where will you sleep?" Asher Montgomery turned, his eyes softening, and said, "I'm in the room across the hall. Tomorrow, we'll decorate it to suit you." The promise carried a tinge of sorrow, like a knife slicing through the perfect mirror of his curated identity. He realized he'd never considered how to transform a space into a home. They moved to the kitchen, a compact hub with a built-in fridge, induction stove, and a long bar counter. Asher Montgomery opened the fridge, revealing only French wine and a few plastic containers of leftover gourmet takeout from a high-end service. No milk, no pastries, nothing reminiscent of a child's breakfast. He turned to Luna Montgomery, his voice uneasy. "I don't have anything for breakfast yet. What do you like to eat?" She thought for a moment, touching the takeout containers, then shook her head. I'm fine with anything." The atmosphere grew heavy, like a thick curtain falling between two distant souls. Asher Montgomery pulled out his phone, ordering Thai food delivery. Luna sat on a bar stool, her legs dangling, her eyes drifting to the window where the city lights reflected golden rays. Their first dinner passed in silence, punctuated only by the soft clink of cutlery on plates, the murmur of pad thai, and the faint aroma of coconut milk. She cut her food delicately, eating slowly, her movements almost adult-like, graceful and cautious in a way that surprised Asher Montgomery. "Grandma taught me like this," she said when he asked about her manners. His eyes blurred, memories of Paloma Mackenzie flooding back, the woman who once shared simple meals under the glow of lakeside lanterns. Paloma Mackenzie's lessons of simplicity and sincerity now shone through Luna Montgomery's poise. Amid the empty space, father and daughter found an invisible thread, a legacy of the past, a love that transcended all calculation. As dinner ended, Asher Montgomery watched Luna Montgomery quietly unpack her suitcase beside the bed, her hand brushing an old photo frame, a picture of Paloma Mackenzie smiling under the sun on a beach. He took a deep breath, as if inhaling the warmth of those memories. For the first time in years, he yearned to dismantle the walls of his success, to fill the void with his daughter's presence. In that moment, the penthouse ceased to be a symbol of power. It became the starting point for a journey to build a true home with Luna Montgomery. In the soft golden light of the afternoon, Asher Montgomery and Luna Montgomery stepped into the bustling mall, where a vibrant children's clothing store stood out amid the sleek rows of upscale shops. From the first escalator, Asher Montgomery felt like a stranger in a labyrinth, his hands more accustomed to clutching work notebooks than pulling his daughter's small suitcase. The fluorescent lights illuminated racks of tiny jackets, miniature jeans, and flared dresses, lined up like a parade, overwhelming him with a nervous excitement rivaling even the most intense boardroom meetings. Luna Montgomery lingered a few steps from the display racks, her sparkling blue eyes tracing the array of colors, neon lights grazing her blonde curls like a tiny halo. Hesitantly, she asked, Can I try this on?" Asher Montgomery leaned down, eyeing the pastel pink sweater adorned with a cute bunny, swallowing hard before replying, "Of course, if you like it, go ahead and try it." But in his mind, a budget spreadsheet flickered. Children's clothes need proper investment. But if she likes it... The father and daughter ambled toward the spacious fitting rooms. Inside the mirrored booth, Luna slipped into the sweater, the full-length mirror reflecting her delighted giggle. Asher Montgomery stood outside, peering through the door's gap, fumbling over whether to say, "You look beautiful," or caution, "Don't worry about the price." He took a deep breath and ventured softly, "It really suits you." She stepped out, her small smile melting his awkwardness. Leaving the fitting room, Asher Montgomery waved over a store assistant, then quietly found a bench near the counter. He placed the sweater Luna chose on the table, his shoulders tensing as he considered, "Is this price reasonable?" But before he could dwell further, Luna Montgomery, holding a virtual price tag, glanced around and said, "Mom taught me to check the price before deciding." Her serious gaze startled Asher Montgomery, making him swallow the reassurance he'd prepared. "I don't need to worry." True to Paloma Mackenzie's teachings, Luna was cautious, almost adult-like in her decisiveness. The air between father and daughter grew sweet yet tense, like an unspoken transaction bridging generations. He looked at her, a soft chuckle escaping. "Today, I just want to buy what's necessary. Pick anything you need, no need to check the price, okay?" Luna lifted her eyes, hesitating before nodding, as if a weight had been lifted after a series of tests. Her smile bloomed like dawn, warming Asher Montgomery's heart in an instant. Next, Asher Montgomery led Luna to the accessories section. Tiny knit hats, miniature gloves, and patterned socks overwhelmed her, her fingers grazing each item before she shook her head. "I don't need much." Her eyes flickered with thought, as if weighing the utility and value of every piece. He thought to himself, "I've never had to deliberate over a pair of tiny gloves like this." Then they reached the toy section. Each item a tether to childhood. Stuffed animals, modeling clay, building sets. Luna Montgomery paused before a display of colored pencils and sketch pads. Her eyes lit up, her head tilting like a curious bird. Asher Montgomery knelt down, asking, "Do you like to draw?" She nodded vigorously, pointing to an aquarelle paint set with a significant price tag. "This, I draw when I'm sad, like Mom taught me." Her reply was like a quiet poem, stirring memories of Paloma Mackenzie, the mother who gifted her art as a way to transform sorrow into color. Without hesitation, Asher Montgomery nodded. "All right, we'll get it." The word "buy" rang from his lips, dispelling all calculations. He handed the paint set to the cashier, who swiftly scanned it, while he eyed the glossy packaging, thinking, "This is the investment that matters." His heart buzzed. The first time spending felt not about profit, but about planting seeds for his daughter's joy. The shopping cart slowly filled with a few essential outfits, the art supplies, and a handful of small accessories. At checkout, Luna Montgomery gripped his hand tightly, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you." Asher Montgomery smiled warmly, his chest swelling with pride. "I'm so happy to see you happy." The store's bell chimed as they stepped outside, the afternoon sun softening, weaving their father-daughter smiles with radiant beams. Leaving the mall, Asher Montgomery carried Luna's suitcase in one hand and the shopping bags in the other, his heart trembling with a newfound sensation. This was no longer a business errand, but a journey of connection, where every expense was a step toward nurturing their bond. In that moment, amidst the bustling city streets, the father and daughter wandered as two kindred spirits, exploring a world together. From tiny clothes to the vibrant hues of emotion that only art and love could paint. In the quiet morning stillness of the two-story penthouse, sunlight slipped through the billowing curtains, casting beams across the glossy glass panels. Asher Montgomery sat silently before his screen, a lukewarm coffee cup cradled in his hands. The first news alert flashed a glaring headline: "Billionaire's secret daughter discovered." In an instant, his heart seemed to stop. Images of Luna Montgomery and himself at the mall had spread across the tabloids. His phone buzzed softly, and Raven Sinclair's voice crackled through like an alarm piercing the dead of night. "It's hotter than wildfire, Asher," Raven Sinclair panted, her words slicing like blades. "The Daily Chronicle is prepping a print with paparazzi shots. They've got you and the girl picking clothes. The headline calls you the absentee father." Her voice carried a mix of dread and frustration, like a gust scattering months of careful planning. Asher Montgomery's gaze darkened, his world of business suddenly reduced to sensational gossip. He slammed his hand on the desk, his voice unusually resolute. "No response. Release nothing." The word "nothing" rang out, cold and unyielding, like a steel wall against the rumors. "No confirmation, no denial. Absolute silence," he continued. "I'll handle PR. Tell the communications director to protect the girl's image." Raven Sinclair nodded, her tense expression easing slightly under the chairman's command. Upstairs, Luna Montgomery dragged her tiny suitcase across the bedroom, her curious eyes fixed on the flickering text on the living room TV. She asked softly, "Why are the news saying I'm—" Her voice trailed off, a mix of disappointment and fear as the phrase "billionaire's secret child" glared back at her. Asher Montgomery placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice warm yet steady. "I know, and I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared for this." Though his words carried regret, his eyes burned with a fierce determination to shield her. The SUV sped through the city's broad streets, streetlights blurring into crystal streaks reflected on the tinted windows, distant reporters snapping photos in a frenzy. At the gates of Westridge Academy, parents slowed their cars, their glances trailing Luna Montgomery in her navy blue uniform. Nectar-hidden lenses lurked behind the steel fence, the clicks of cameras like drum beats pounding in her ears, composing a chaotic symphony. Luna stepped out quietly, her heart racing under the storm of curiosity. In the waiting room, whispers spread like wildfire. Is she really Montgomery's daughter? Did he neglect her until her grandmother passed? Is it a family secret? Each rumor stung Luna Montgomery like a needle, her small shoulders trembling. Asher Montgomery approached, his gaze softening as he saw his daughter, masking her sadness behind a forced smile. He whispered, "You'll be okay, I'm right here." In the classroom, Luna chose a seat at the back, her spine pressed against the door, her heart echoing like a raven's call in a dark forest. When the teacher introduced her as the new girl, daughter of billionaire Asher Montgomery, the other children erupted. "Did he really not want you until your grandma died?" The hypnotic question silenced her, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Asher Montgomery's hands gently squeezed her shoulders as if pouring his courage into her. After school, Asher Montgomery waited outside the iron gates, summer breeze tugging at his suit jacket, carrying the scent of bougainvillea. Luna Montgomery emerged, her eyes red but hidden behind her backpack. She turned and asked in a small voice, "Is it true, what they're saying?" He knelt, placing a hand over her heart. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't know." "If I had, everything would have been different." His trembling but sincere words seeped into her, dissolving the shell of anger and hurt. As dusk fell, on the drive home, Asher Montgomery tried to spark conversation about her day, but the clamor of news alerts and texts from Sebastian Drake, the CFO, flooded his phone. Yet his focus was on Luna's quivering voice. "I'm scared they'll say bad things about Mom." He pulled her closer, whispering, "I'll protect you and your mom, Paloma Mackenzie, no matter the cost." Amid the city's clamor, father and daughter found solace in a simple embrace, their first shared stand against the media storm, affirming a bond stronger than any sensational headline. Late at night, a hushed stillness draped the penthouse atop the skyscraper, the city below silenced, its twinkling lights like fallen stars. In Luna Montgomery's dimly lit bedroom, her ragged breaths shattered the suffocating quiet. Each gasp wove an endless tale of loneliness and unrelenting longing for Paloma Mackenzie, the mother she had lost. Her tiny frame writhed beneath the blankets, sweat beading on her forehead, her hands clutching an old, worn teddy bear as if grasping the last remnants of warmth. In her fevered sleep, a hoarse cry of "Mom" echoed, dragging Luna Montgomery's soul through the vast emptiness of memory. Amid the paradoxically vast room, Asher Montgomery caught a faint sound from the hallway, like a dried flower crumbling in the dark. Work, projects, and boardroom meetings were relegated to the floors below, overtaken by an unfamiliar pang of urgency. He sprang up, rushing to her door, his eyes red with piercing worry. The once imposing suit jacket now hung crumpled, slipping from his shoulders as if his carefully crafted persona were dissolving. He knocked softly, his voice low. "Luna, are you okay?" Without waiting for a reply, he pushed the door open and hurried to the bed where she tossed restlessly. Luna Montgomery lifted her head from the grip of a nightmare, her tear-filled eyes meeting her father's like a castaway spotting a distant shore. Her face twisted with fear, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Mom," once more, a plea for a miracle. The teddy bear slipped to the bed, revealing a small tear at its shoulder, a silent witness to past pains. Asher Montgomery knelt beside her, his breath quick, his heart pounding like a war drum. He placed a trembling hand on her shoulder, whispering, "You're safe now. I'm here." His words, warm and steady, carried a soothing breeze to calm the storm raging within her. In that moment of their hands touching, the barriers between his rigid business world and her fragile childhood dissolved. Asher Montgomery gently clasped her small hand, brushing the crescent-shaped birthmark, a hidden emblem of dreams yet to take shape. He murmured, "I don't know what to do, but I won't let you face this alone." His halting voice, laced with regret for years of absence, cradled her still-tangled heart. Luna Montgomery closed her eyes, leaning into her father's embrace, reclaiming a warmth she thought was lost forever. In the darkness, only the steady rhythm of her breathing and the warmth radiating from her father's hand remained. Asher Montgomery gently stroked her back, as if tracing a map of her wounds with tender strokes. She listened to his breaths, her panic slowly fading, giving way to a sense of safety. The room seemed to inhale, preserving this sacred moment. Two souls from worlds apart, united by the purest bond of family. After a while, Luna Montgomery opened her eyes, a glimmer of hope in her gaze. Can you stay a little longer?" Her voice was soft, an invitation to a closeness they had never shared. Asher Montgomery nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay until you fall back asleep." Her shoulders relaxed, the trembling ceased, replaced by calm. Father and daughter sat together until her breathing steadied, the ticking clock playing the first notes of a symphony of happiness. The next morning, as dawn gently knocked, Asher Montgomery stepped into his study, his eyes catching on a painting, bold yet innocent, profoundly moving. Drawn in watercolor pencils, it depicted a father and daughter hand in hand before a towering window. Beneath it, in scrawled handwriting, "Thank you for staying." His chest tightened, the artwork a reminder that a father's presence was the most priceless gift. Each stroke, uneven blends of pink and sea blue, held a child's gratitude and trust. Asher Montgomery's face softened, his eyes brimming with emotion. He leaned down, his trembling hand grazing the paper, feeling the texture of the pencil marks. In that moment, memories of Paloma Mackenzie, Luna's mother, flooded back through the layers of color and brushstrokes, his heart resonating with the sorrow and hope she had passed to her daughter. The painting was more than thanks. It was proof of a vow. From now on, he and his daughter would never part. In the morning light, Luna's small room, filled with her creations, glowed brightly. Asher Montgomery knew that no matter how chaotic the world became, or how work demanded his attention, their father-daughter bond had touched his deepest instincts, becoming an invisible strength to uplift them both. In that moment, he understood that a child's patience and a father's sincerity had forged an unbreakable connection, ready to weather any storm. The boardroom lights flickered like warning signals as Sebastian Drake strode in, his grim expression paired with a thick stack of files in hand. The polished clack of his shoes echoed alone on the plush carpet, each step pounding a silent command into Asher Montgomery's chest. Seattle. Behind him, the projector screen glowed with growth charts, profit figures cresting in relentless waves, each peak piling more weight onto Asher's shoulders than a ton of steel. "Everything requires your presence in person." Sebastian Drake's voice growled, each syllable a needle etching pressure deeper. A private jet to the West Coast, 3 weeks without returning. That was the plan, long set, now a burden stealing his breath. The office, cluttered with project papers, souvenir gift boxes, and a photo of Luna Montgomery giggling in a keepsake frame, suddenly morphed into a courtroom of conscience. The late-night glow from the window reflected faint cracks in the veneer of his hard-won success. Asher Montgomery brushed his hand over a tray of jam tarts, his fingers grazing the cold keyboard before meeting Sebastian Drake's probing stare. A minute 24 hours to arrange. His voice rasped, each word stacking atop the next to balance work against the fragile bond of family just beginning to take root. The tick-tick of the wall clock droned on, a sigh from Asher Montgomery's heart. Amid the flood of relentless emails, a message from Raven Sinclair flashed. Press digging into daughter's move to penthouse. How could he quell the media storm while keeping his promise to Luna Montgomery? The question was a razor, slicing at his throat until he could barely breathe. Yet the responsibility to a child who had lost her mother, clinging to an unacknowledged father, anchored Asher Montgomery, refusing to let him turn away. Before he could finish with Sebastian Drake, a sharp knock rattled the office door. Juniper Hayes, his loyal assistant, stepped in, her expression uneasy. "Someone's here for you," she said softly, her eyes flashing a wary glint. "Orion Mackenzie." The name hit like a thunderclap, stopping Asher Montgomery's heart. Orion Mackenzie, Paloma Mackenzie's brother, arrived unannounced, a tidal wave threatening to shatter the fragile calm. At the white-painted wooden door, Asher Montgomery steadied his grip on the handle, forcing composure before a man who had once severed all contact. Orion Mackenzie entered in a charcoal gray suit, his eyes cold as a predator's. His hand clutched a file, a custody lawsuit, a legal map stacked with evidence. "You have no right to her," Orion Mackenzie's voice rumbled low, each word swinging like a blow in a family feud. "My wife and I are Luna Montgomery's real family." The room shrank in an instant, leaving only the clash of two furious gazes. Asher Montgomery gripped the back of a chair, arms crossed to steady himself, though his taut features betrayed him. "You weren't there when her mother needed you," he replied, quiet but firm. "Luna lived with Marigold Mackenzie for over 3 years. Where were you then?" The chairs scraped the floor, a sound echoing their shared history with Paloma Mackenzie. The file hit the desk, the custody lawsuit papers scattering, rippling like turbulent waves. It was like an auction where no one could bid for unconditional love. Asher Montgomery stepped forward, gathering each page, his gaze steadfast as forged steel. "You share her blood, but you're not her family," he said, his voice unwavering. "Only I, the father who recognized the note on a napkin, am worthy of being Luna Montgomery's true family." In that moment, silence flooded the room. Each breath from Orion Mackenzie seemed to weigh a retort, but pride and pain yielded to quiet defeat. "I'll see my lawyer," he conceded, then stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The sound landed like a hammer, crushing the remnants of past blame and resentment. Left alone, Asher Montgomery and Juniper Hayes, his steadfast ally, stood in the aftermath, her chaotic gaze reflecting an understanding of his choices. Sebastian Drake and Raven Sinclair lingered outside, catching every breath. But Asher's only concern was a single, simple question. Is Luna Montgomery safe? He looked toward the balcony garden, where a breeze gently stirred lavender petals, as if quelling the storm in his heart. That night, Asher Montgomery didn't sleep. He sat by the window, the city's lights swirling into a luminous tapestry below. The lavender swayed in the breeze, a reminder of the peace he vowed to preserve for his daughter. The press hounded, the courts loomed, the board pressed, but above all, his heart had made its choice. "I'll protect Luna Montgomery at any cost, no matter what." In that moment, amid a barrage of urgent messages, a single light never dimmed. The radiant bond of father and daughter, fiercer than any pressure of power. The cold white light of the boardroom spilled over the sleek leather chairs, casting long streaks that grazed the polished shoes of Asher Montgomery, who stood before the council with a face heavy with resolve. Across from him, the faces of his colleagues, Gideon Carlisle, Callum Shepard, Sebastian Drake, gloomed like icebergs, poised to melt under the heat of his bold proposal. In a voice both warm and stern, Asher Montgomery began, "I request a 3-week postponement of the Seattle trip to attend Luna Montgomery's art exhibition. I'll participate via video conference to ensure progress." The word exhibition echoed through the room, a wake-up call for those who assumed work always came first. The room fell silent, a dazzling mirror reflecting every flicker in Asher Montgomery's eyes. The relentless pressure of work, which had forged him into a warrior of markets over the years, now collided with the fragile wall of family. He felt Gideon Carlisle's scrutinizing gaze, the veins bulging under the council chairman's wrist, as if to say, "This project can't afford delays." But Asher's heartbeat had charted a new course, a steadfast path to protect his little girl. Meanwhile, Luna Montgomery's heart thrummed like a harp strung with conflicting melodies. Westridge Academy, once a symphony of knowledge, had become a stage of solitude as she sat before a blank sheet, her trembling pencil sketching a family tree. The branches faltered under black ink, bearing only 2 main stems, herself and her mother, Paloma Mackenzie. No trace of the father who had only recently appeared. A silent gust of the past swept through each stroke, pulling her into a waking nightmare. Why did Dad show up so late? She looked up, her tear-filled eyes meeting the expectant gaze of a world that had never truly been hers. At that moment, the phone in the living room chimed softly, signaling a call from Sierra Buchanan, the social worker and temporary caregiver. Asher Montgomery stepped out, weary but resolute, and picked up the receiver. "Mr. Asher, there's an issue at school. Luna's really upset. I'm worried she'll see this as being abandoned again." Sierra Buchanan's voice was a gentle breeze, reminding him that each step mattered more than billion-dollar deals. "I'm on my way," he replied, then turned back to the boardroom, his gaze a magnet drawing every eye. "Excuse me, I need to handle a family matter first." A sigh escaped Callum Shepard, and Gideon Carlisle gave a slight nod, his face betraying a flicker of surprise. Light from the window spilled onto the podium, casting Asher Montgomery's elongated shadow across the wooden floor, a visual of the 2 worlds he straddled, the towering businessman and the faltering father. For a moment, the silence grew heavier, awaiting the leader's verdict. The scene shifted to the sprawling hallway of the school's classrooms. Luna Montgomery hurried to meet the principal, her voice a faint breath. "Miss, I." Indigo Lang, the art teacher, guided her into a small office where warm yellow light bathed a massive school mural, as if challenging childhood pain. When Sierra Buchanan arrived, Luna burst into tears, her cheeks streaked with innocent grief. "I'm scared of being left again," she sobbed. The fear of past and present collided, a flood sweeping away her fragile shields of hope. Amid walls lined with student files and awards, Asher Montgomery appeared like a savior. He knelt, and Luna's trembling shoulders found refuge in his steady embrace. An anchor in a stormy sea, he whispered in her ear, "Dad's here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Luna Montgomery's tentative smile glimmered like a crescent moon, dispelling the darkness of her young soul. They returned to the boardroom, where Juniper Hayes waited with a paper cup of water. Asher Montgomery rose, his eyes no longer cold diamonds but softened with compassion. He presented a restructured Seattle plan. Juniper Hayes would lead on site, while he would join via video calls each morning and evening, ensuring no detail was missed. Gideon Carlisle and Callum Shepard blinked, recognizing the deft flexibility of a master strategist, a model both professional and humane. As the screen went dark, the room erupted in soft applause. Even Sebastian Drake gave a slight nod, a fleeting smile signaling approval of the bold move. Raven Sinclair from the corner exhaled in relief, ready to report positive news to the press. Asher Montgomery's gaze swept the council, landing on the first spark of joy after days of racing against time. He had balanced 2 seemingly opposing worlds, the cutthroat race of commerce, and the journey to build a home with his daughter. And as his eyes met Luna Montgomery's, who waved gently with a smile like morning sunlight, he knew this decision was worth more than any figure in a project plan. The cold white light of the courtroom bathed the fingerprint-smudged files, casting a stark glow that mirrored the heavy silence permeating the space. The sterile white walls stood like an impassive mirror, amplifying every breath of the attendee. As Judge Martinez entered, her footsteps resounded like war drums, drawing all eyes to the first summoned party, Orion Mackenzie, Paloma Mackenzie's brother. Between tables laden with documents, a small poster of Luna Montgomery's portrait leaned slightly, a quiet reminder of the case's heart. On the right, Asher Montgomery sat still, his broad frame in a dark suit suddenly diminished before the opposing team of lawyers and their client. The gavel's sharp rap opened the hearing, a starting gun signaling the battle to come. Orion Mackenzie rose, his movements precise, like a conductor of a legal machine. His voice, warm yet edged with ice, began, "Your Honor, my family has nurtured Luna Montgomery for 3 years. We offer a stable home. My wife and I raise 3 children in a household filled with love." Each mention of home struck like a honed blade aimed at Asher Montgomery, implicitly dismissing the absent father's claim to custody. Evidence was presented. Guardianship papers, utility bills, photos of a joyful family gathered under one roof. Orion Mackenzie played a short video, Luna Montgomery's smile lighting up a dinner table, her steps slow and safe in his embrace. The footage gleamed like a cherished memory, powerfully persuasive to the panel. Gideon Carlisle and Callum Shepard's eyes flickered with approval, while Asher Montgomery watched in silence, a man on the edge of a storm, suppressing the ache of seeing the life he longed to claim projected on the screen. Orion Mackenzie's gaze locked onto Asher Montgomery as his closing words hung in the air. "They may be biological parents, but we are her true family." The courtroom fell into a weighted silence, broken only by the rustle of files as the prosecution prepared to counter. To his temples from lawyers and the faint click of a purse heightened the tension, like a bowstring stretched to its limit. As Orion took his seat, Asher Montgomery's lawyer, a deft advocate who had defended the corporation countless times, stepped forward. He briefly outlined his client's storied success, then urged the panel to consider emotional bonds. But this was merely a prelude to the main act, Asher Montgomery's personal testimony. As the lawyers fell silent, Asher Montgomery stood, his trembling hands resting on the table's edge, the light catching his hair in a fragile halo. His voice, no longer the icy timbre of a businessman, was hoarse and earnest. "Your Honor, 8 weeks ago, I didn't know I had a daughter. A small napkin changed my life. Particularly, it wasn't just a message. It was an invitation to become a father. Each utterance of father crystallized hope, melting the hardest ice in the room. He spoke of sleepless nights, hearing Luna's cries for mom echo through the hallway, and the first time he called her Luna not as a project or profit margin, but as a hesitant whisper on his lips. "I've chosen her every day," he said, looking directly at the panel. "I've set aside billion-dollar deals to be with her, and I'll keep choosing her for the rest of my life." His words carried the weight of raw emotion, resonating like a redemptive hymn. A soft ripple of applause broke out, perhaps the first of the session. Orion Mackenzie's brow furrowed, but he didn't interrupt. His eyes flashed with surprise as if recognizing an opponent not easily subdued. The tense air softened, giving way to empathy and respect. Next, Juniper Hayes took the stand, presenting a timeline of transformation. The day the napkin appeared, the first time they prepared Luna's room, their inaugural pancake breakfast, the postponed business trip to attend her art exhibition. Each milestone traced a journey of growth, painting a portrait of a father maturing through every choice. Her words, "I've witnessed every step of his change," rang clear, a living witness's testimony impossible to dismiss. As all stepped back, Judge Martinez closed her eyes in contemplation, the rustle of papers and the hum of lights weaving a prelude to the verdict. The silence stretched, like the moments before rain. Finally, she struck the gavel. After considering the child's best interests, the court grants primary custody to Asher Montgomery, while allowing Orion Mackenzie and his family to maintain contact should Luna Montgomery desire it. The gavel's sound thundered through the city's heart, dispelling all doubts. Asher Montgomery exhaled, his eyes shimmering with joy. In the front row, Luna Montgomery clutched her teddy bear, a shy smile blooming through her teeth. Beyond the courtroom doors, the afternoon sun bathed their faces, a testament that after the storm, love and determination had opened a new door, ushering in the start of a true family. The first dawn after the solemn courtroom verdict streamed through the penthouse windows like golden silk, parting the veil of night and bathing Luna Montgomery's new room in a gentle glow. The once cold gray walls had given way to vibrant pastel green curtains, and a family photo frame, once hung high in a corner, now sat proudly among dainty bookshelves. Luna's watercolor drawings, etched with traces of Paloma Mackenzie and her own innocent smile, adorned the space. Every wall was draped with fabric patterned with wildflowers, reminiscent of the garden where she once frolicked with Marigold Mackenzie, now a nursery for her future with her father. The soft bed was dressed in blush pink sheets, pillows carefully chosen with heart motifs, so that when Luna clutched her worn teddy bear, the angels of old dreams would whisper that love still lingered, even without her mother by her side. In the adjacent living room, Asher Montgomery smiled softly at the sight of father and daughter, Luna placing her teddy bear on the nightstand while he tidied the boxes of toys bought the day before. The empire of commerce seemed to fade into the background, making way for a cozy haven, aglow with heartfelt warmth. Under the warm amber light, he asked gently, "Do you want to print more drawings for the walls?" Luna Montgomery replied with childlike sincerity, her eyes sparkling. "I want to hang a painting of a lighthouse. Mom said it guides lost travelers home." Her words rang with a warmth that echoed Paloma Mackenzie, the mother who taught her that art was not just color, but the language of the soul. At that moment, Asher Montgomery's phone buzzed, displaying Gideon Carlisle's name. The voice on the other end was firm. "The board meeting starts in 2 hours. The restructuring files await your signature." He looked at Luna Montgomery with eyes full of trust. "Dad has to go to a meeting, but tomorrow I'll be here all day." A flicker of sadness crossed her face, but she nodded, as if grasping that growing up sometimes meant balancing work and family. He gave her a gentle hug before striding out, like a soldier returning to battle with a heavy helm, but with a heart steadier than ever. Amid the tense atmosphere, the Blackwood Enterprises boardroom buzzed with white light and the rustle of papers as Asher Montgomery entered, his presence solid as a fortress. Before Gideon Carlisle, Callum Shepard, Sebastian Drake, and dozens of senior members, he announced a historic decision. "I will step down as acting CEO to take on the role of chairman of the board. Juniper Hayes will temporarily oversee daily operations while I focus on long-term strategy and, most importantly, my family, especially Luna Montgomery." The declaration swept through like a strange wind, toppling preconceptions of success. It wasn't work that defined a person, but family that measured their worth. The room paused, then erupted in applause for the bold pivot. Gideon Carlisle nodded with a faint smile of admiration, Callum Shepard quietly signaled support, and Sebastian Drake exhaled in relief, knowing the strategy remained secure while the leader could fully embrace his family. In the reflective gaze of the new chairman, the old icy demeanor was gone, replaced by the etched warmth of quiet joy. The penthouse ceiling glowed as Asher Montgomery returned, greeting Luna Montgomery with a reminder. "Tomorrow morning we'll make blueberry pancakes for the first time," she squealed with delight, her eyes alight with eager anticipation. In the sleek kitchen, the sizzle of batter filled the air as he flipped the mix, blueberries rolling across the hot griddle. Their scent mingling with flour to awaken the space, Luna Montgomery bounced on her toes, her gaze fixed on the oven as if watching a complex circus act, giggling each time a pancake puffed up with golden flecks. He carefully poured small rounds, stacking them on a plate with a garnish of lemon slices, then sat across from her, the steaming stack exuding cozy warmth. "You know," he whispered between bites of sweet pancake, "for years I thought time had to be programmed, everything arranged by rules. But pancakes can't be measured. Their value lies in the moment." Luna Montgomery's eyes brightened, and she nodded, dipping her piece into syrup, savoring each drop of sweetness. Amid the crunch of bites and the fragrant kitchen air, father and daughter chatted about school, friends, dreams of painting, and weekend parks. The morning closed with soft laughter, no longer clouded by work, only painted in the pink of love's embrace. The late sunlight illuminated Luna Montgomery's radiant face beside Asher Montgomery's warm one, a testament to a simple truth. Happiness wasn't found in status or power, but in late-night pancakes, wall-hung drawings, and the long hugs shared in a newly built home. In that warmth, they both understood that choosing between ambition and family was never the question. True happiness came from prioritizing love above all. Listening to the emotional journey of Asher Montgomery, from a billion-dollar empire to a devoted father to Luna Montgomery, I truly feel the power of family bonds and courageous choices. Thank you for joining Millionaire and Heart Stories. See you in the next tale.